PodcastOne presents the Steve Austin Show Classics.
So anyway, we're here at WrestleMania 30 talking to Michael PSAs. I mean, so should I call you Michael PSAs or Doc Hendricks?
Oh, don't call me Doc.
Don't call you Doc.
The only time Doc had any good moments was when I stooged off Jake to you when you were coming back from the hospital there in Milwaukee at the King of the Ring.
Okay, let's jump in right there. There we were.
You know what? I'm not crazy about Doc Hendricks, especially at the time, because I still thought I had a lot of gas in my tank, or at least enough to run around the track once or twice more.
So you're saying when they converted you to Doc Hendricks, you were an on-air personality and not someone in a squared circle.
Right.
Okay.
I was. And that hurt, but at the point I was in my lifetime coming off back surgery, and could tell right away that I was not, I'll be the first to say that I wasn't the greatest wrestler of all time. And I get a kick out of it when people come up and say, you weren't the greatest wrestler of all time. I go, no, I wasn't, but I sold out. So, when you want to go look at that, just call me box office, okay?
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, you're one of my favorites. But, yeah, no, you weren't one of the greatest, but you were an attraction. Your attitude, y'all swagger. I mean, the Freebirds, the whole gimmick, you Bam Bam Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts. I mean, the whole unit, man. I was a college student at North Texas State University, man. As soon as I knew the Freebirds were coming into town, I was going to buy a ticket. And y'all could all work your ass off. Were you the most graceful person in the ring? No. And to that point, neither was Stone Cold Steve Austin. Sold a couple tickets in my day, though.
Yeah.
It ain't always the greatest. It ain't always the greatest athlete that rings up the cash register.
No, fans don't buy tickets for grace. But that was the problem. Is that really the Freebird thing wasn't a gimmick. It was a lifestyle.
That's what I mean.
It was us.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to let go of that lifestyle. And then I'd never really been in the corporate world, a little bit in WCW. And I came up here and I was at the crossroads in my career. And that was what was offered to me. And I decided at that time that, you know what? Maybe there's a time maybe more than once or twice in a man's life where you decide maybe it's time that I don't know everything, and maybe it's time I shut up and I learn some more. And that's basically what I did with the Doc Hendricks thing. I was the pitch man. I was a goofy guy. But what I did in 4 years was I learned television. I learned the inner workings of television.
What was the difference between learning television as you speak now to what you knew as a guy in the ring as a Freebird?
In the ring, I just knew that I didn't know what the television end of the of our genre was looking for. I just knew that I was the guy. I was a star. You come follow me if you want the action, right, or follow us. So with that said,
so you know how to entertain people once they get in the building is how the product is covered from a TV standpoint and a production.
Exactly, and I didn't understand production. Thank you. And plus I always did have a feeling of confidence because it was quite a barrier to break in rock and roll music in wrestling. I don't think a lot of people have ever come up and said, hey, thanks for doing that, because I didn't have the balls to do it or wouldn't have had the balls to do it. And we did it for us. It was quite an ordeal to talk Gordy into it. At first, he didn't. I don't know, Michael. I don't know about no rock and roll coming. I said, Terry, we ride up and down the road, okay? We listen to the same Leonard Skinner tape. We throw down some beer and a couple other things. Yeah. And then, we go to the town, we come back, we do the same thing. I said, what it was is there was a marriage in the music business and the wrestling business, if you will. Yeah. Because I would see the same people at concerts when I was a kid growing up. And funny story about that, I went to a Skinner concert about 2 weeks ago, and there we are backstage, me and Johnny Van Zandt. I didn't even know they were in town. I was walking the beach in Pensacola. Some guy comes up and says, Freebird. I said, yeah. He goes, you going to that Freebird concert tonight? I said, no. He said, yeah, Skinner's in town. So I got a hold of the guys and, still keep in touch with them. And there we are before they go on drinking water laughing. Now, I can guarantee you, 20 years ago, that's not what we would have been doing. We'd have been laughing, but we wouldn't have been drinking water. Yeah. So that's a cool involvement. But getting back to the Doc Hendricks thing, it just, every man needs to be humbled at least once or twice in his life. And it's hard to do when you have to, especially in this business, when it's your bravado that carries you.
I always felt, and so when you came in here and you were now going to be Doc Hendricks, how old were you?
I was 35.
Damn. You were that young?
Yeah.
When did you last step out of a ring?
The last time I actually was in a ring was 2001, and before that it had been probably a couple years. You know, I just did the brief thing with the Hardys.
But you really retired at what age?
Oh, probably 34, 33.
Oh,
yeah.
I had no idea it was that soon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you
you
had
got to remember, I started at 17.
Well, I know, but, you know, in a wrestler's life, in the prime, boy, when you're in those mid-30s,
Yeah.
you know so much. You've been back and forth, heel, baby, the whole gamut.
Yep.
And you really have a
I
great
didn't
psychological.
get that.
Yeah, but that's very young. I thought, you know, when I left at 40, that was still young.
Sure it is. And it's amazing, to your point, how much you know. You know, you break in and the old-timers will sit there and shake their head at you when you come back. Oh, that was good, kid, but you're just doing too much. And you don't get it. You know, you're like, screw that. I'm going to do everything to get over.
These days, you know, I've been out, Michael, since WrestleMania 19, almost 12 years. We're at WrestleMania 30 right now in a few days. And I left the business. I retired. But you never leave the business. Your mind is still there. So, you know, it's always evolving. You keep putting on layers and layers of stuff. More knowledge keeps coming in. I watch the product today, and I watch these, young men and women go out there and do the deal and pay the dues and learn the inner workings of a squared circle. And when I go back and watch my stuff, I'm highly critical of everything that I did.
Right.
So my mind keeps evolving and watching what they're doing today. But, man, at 34, 35 years of age, so then you come here, you're going to be Doc Hendricks. And you were always a mouthpiece. Was the promo always easy for you? Were you a talkative kid when you was younger?
Yeah. That was one thing that kind of came easy. It was actually Hollywood John Tatum.
I loved him.
And I grew up together.
Yeah.
And
are y'all cousins or just friends?
We're best friends.
Okay.
So anyway, we got in trouble in school for skipping school, and they got sent us to a special crisis class.
Right.
And the assignment was to write a 25-word essay on what you did over the weekend. So he wrote down, Don Carson broke his T-tier on the turnbuckle on Saturday Night Wrestling. And he's sliding it to me. We're only in like the 6th grade. And he's about doubled over with laughter, but try to keep it from the teacher. Yeah. So I laugh. I don't even know what Saturday Night Wrestling is. So he turned me on to it. But he had a way, because his parents, were in politics and they owned the fairgrounds, of kind of being a heel most of his life. And I took a lot of the stuff that he did and I kind of manufactured it into that Michael Hayes persona. And then I stole from Mike the California Hippie Boyette. And then I was somewhere in between because, in my day, it wasn't just say no, it was just say yes.
Right.
So, I just took a bunch of that stuff and put it together. And then, when I got with Terry Gordy, who was a phenom at 16, back there was no internet. There was, you sent pictures in, like if you wanted to get,
But you're growing up down there in Picola, right?
Right. But Terry was from the Tennessee area.
So you're already in business now?
Yeah, I'm already in the business. I just got brought over to...
And you got in when you were 17?
Yeah.
What'd your parents say when you said, hey, I'm going to be a pro wrestler?
I'll give you 6 months. That's what my mama said. My daddy died when I was like 3 months old.
Yeah.
But she said, I'll give you 6 months. She's my biggest fan. And, she used to be crazy when she'd go watch us. But anyway, so Gordy was their champion at 16. They were running opposition, Mississippi, to Bill Watts. I got brought over under a mask to, be the job guy.
Right.
And I hit it off with Frankie Kane, the great Mephisto, who was the booker. And I used to ride over with the group of guys that come over from Pensacola. And one week they didn't have nobody to do an interview. And... I did this yucky babyface interview, but I said all the right things.
Right.
And he went, that kid can talk. And he gave me the platform to talk. And that started getting me noticed. That's where I broke in with Percy, Paul Bearer. And we used to ride together. Miles and miles he wouldn't talk to me.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Why? Because you was a young guy?
No, because I get on his nerves.
Right.
I'm able to do that in life and in the ring.
Yeah.
And I'd sit there and comb my hair all the time. And I'd tell him, I said, I'm going to have this thing where it's going to be the fabulous Freebirds and rock and roll music. And it's going to work and it's going to hit big. And even back then, I thought our business could go big. We discussed this a little bit before we went on the air. I thought it's such an art form, and I'm glad it's finally being realized for that. It's physical art that you have to be special to do.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that can do it a lot better than I could from a mechanical point. but people don't buy mechanics.
Right.
People buy feelings. And that's the thing that the Freebirds and the Von Erichs had. There was a feeling there, it's like when Flair would come on TV, like when you would come on TV, there's all these special people, the elite people, have this tangible thing that where they go, oh, hell, something fixing to happen now. Get out the way to TV. I mean, from grandmothers to teenagers, it's just a feeling because people want to be entertained.
Right.
The life they live through us.
Right.
The one they want to live. The life that they do live kind of sucks.
It's tough.
It's
tough.
tough.
The working man and working woman.
And you know what? I always appreciated somebody buying a ticket. I don't think you can find hardly any fans that ever say they didn't get more than their money's worth when they saw the Freebirds.
Right.
And it was just a pride thing.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
Dude, I used to watch when I was going to school at North Texas State University my junior and senior year playing football. Friday nights, Sportatorium. I would go down. So who's coming to town? The Freebirds are coming to town. Man, they'd hit y'all's music, and here you would come with that red sequin Confederate flag coming down. Loud, proud, and it was just badass, full of swagger. Your damn hair bleached blonde, and then you come in and you get on top of that turnbuckle, start doing the hip thing. I'm like, man, that son of a bitch. I either wanted to kick, because of what y'all were doing.
Right.
I either wanted to kick your ass or drink beer with you. But I was going to see the Freebirds and Michael Hayes, and it was electricity. People don't know. The people that were there do, and even the days before, because that was kind of on the downswing of WCCW. But just that Sportatorium in general and how hot those Von Erichs were, how hot y'all were.
Yeah.
That was a great time to be a pro wrestling fan.
It was. When we went in there, I went in there for 1 week for Gary Hart because I'd been running with Gary a little bit when he would bring Kabuki and Georgia Championship Wrestling. And this was one of the times I got fired or quit. I forget. Me and Ole got in an argument. And so they did an angle where they broke my leg. But they didn't really break my leg. Right. But everybody thought they did. So for first time ever, I'm off. The phone don't ring because usually people pick you up off that cable.
Right.
And come on in. And it was always fun. You'd come in like the champion. You come in a week or two, get a great guarantee, and have no pressure. So anyway, I came out there for a week for Gary Hart, and he brought me into what was their big shows. I think they had them like once a quarter. They called them Star Wars. So I went to San Antonio, and I had no expectations. You never heard anybody say, oh, I'm out of here, I'm going to Dallas. You just never heard it.
Right.
You did hear stories about Fritz Von Erich pushes his boys, and he really pushes them down everybody's throat. That was a smart move.
Right.
But I got to the Hemisphere Arena. A lot of people don't even remember that in San Antonio.
Yeah.
They had a $50,000 house, and I was shocked at that. I went, oh, my God. You can draw money here. They can draw money. And when I saw the response for the Von Erichs, I just couldn't believe it. I hadn't seen that since I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the top ones.
Yeah.
I got with Junkyard Dog here in New Orleans. We blew that apart. And that was somebody that was over.
Yeah.
He wasn't the only one over time, but he's the one that popped it. Tommy Rich in his heyday.
Yeah.
And I don't know that at that point I would venture to say, if you asked me, the Von Erichs were even stronger in their home area. And I remember I rode back with David Manning, and I got to the payphone, and I called Terry. I said, listen, you need to give your notice. I said, you need to come on out here. We got some business to do. And, we did that whole thing. But the Von Erich, it just captured the whole state because, as you know from being from Texas, it's its own country.
Right.
And, they just love them boys. They had to shut down Six Flags one time in Arlington when they went there because people just mobbed them. But that thing just clicked, and that's the one thing about our business is when you get the ball to the top of the hill, then you can screw up and draw money.
Right.
And we did.
Yeah.
We did. But I thought we had some really good stuff. We had a really good time, and I'll never forget it in my life,
So what made you decide, hey, man, I'm getting pro wrestling, and who broke you in?
Well, I loved, as soon as I watched it, I got hooked. And
what was I've been asking this question, but what was it about it to you? Some people have been telling me it was the larger than life personas. For me, changing channels at 7 or 8 years of age in Edna, Texas, it was just two guys, and there was no high production values. It was a smoke-filled arena. It was the Sam Houston Coliseum. It was a little rope banister around the ring. It was just two guys going at it for the championship gold, and that was enough. Dusty Rhodes was bleeding like a stuck pig, and that's what got me hooked on it. It was about the competition. It wasn't so much about the spectacle or the larger-than-life personalities. For you, what was it?
Well, that hooked me too. The excitement of it, because it would make you angry and make you happy at the same time.
And you grew up watching which territory?
The Gulf Coast Wrestling.
Okay. Would that have been Gordon Sully calling that action?
No. That's South Florida.
Okay.
This is North Florida. They had a variety of announcers. The ring announcer, Don Griffin, I remember him. I don't recall who would call it periodically. They weren't a Gordon Sully, but
right.
It was that action and the excitement and, the different varied emotions it would make you feel. But now I do have to say, the one that got me was Mike the California Hippie Boyette, and a guy I stole from too was the fabulous Don Fargo.
Right.
When Don Fargo came in with that long bleach blonde hair and that strut, buddy, and he had a different strut than Jarrett did, which he took from Jackie Fargo.
Right.
Don's was more kind of like what I tried to do, like, God dang it, Mo, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
Not look at me. It's like, I am it.
Yeah.
And that I was hooked. I was hooked. So, I implemented a lot of those things that worked for me, and, I could tell that I, without trying, could really tick people off. And, I combined that with, the verbal skills I was blessed with, and tried to say things that were contemporary. I always use song lyrics in my promos where people that would hit home with them. And then I would talk about stuff that, people weren't talking about then. It's like, hey, man, look, I know you're not having a good time right now. I know your wife's looking at me, and she's wanting me. She surely doesn't want you. And that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I got Terry out there. As you know, the rest was history. We got Buddy back out of the oil fields.
How did he come into the mix?
Well, Bill Watts put him with us at first when we were in Louisiana because, I think I was really ticking off Buck Robley with my ring work. Even though the thing was working, Buck had to direct everything from dog to us. Terry,
when you say ticking everybody off with your ring work, meaning what?
That I wasn't up to speed.
Okay, on the green side?
Yeah, to be in that position. You got to remember now, I main evented this place at 21 years old.
Yeah.
Against Junkyard Dog in the Superdome.
Yeah.
And,
Jesus Christ, that's unbelievable.
Lot of heat.
Yeah.
A lot
from
of
the boys.
Heat from the boys.
Yeah, a little, jealousy.
And, and Terry and Buddy was in the double main event with against Buck and Dusty. And, of course, they brought Andre and Hogan in. And that was when Hogan had his first run as a heel.
Yeah.
And they booed that match.
Yeah.
At the time. Of course, it later became one of the biggest matches of all time. So they had a few years to perfect it. But, once I learned how to tick people off, I knew that it was something I could use. And if I could tick the people off without trying, what if I tried?
Right. I know the answer to this question, but obviously I want to ask it. You like working heel better than you do baby.
Oh, God, yeah.
What do you like more about working as a heel?
First of all, I like the power. I like the control. And because without the antagonist, as JR would say, you can't have a protagonist. You can't draw money if there ain't somebody you want to see get their ass kicked. That's just plain and simple. It's a lot different today, but there's still a lot of those basic formulas that will work. You got to want to see somebody get bounced around. And, it always worked, too, because you never died. You never got killed, which is what you build the audience to a fever pitch, and that's what they wanted. I did not like being a babyface. I saw the reasons to do it at times because there's a thin line between love and hate. And sooner or later, if they hate you long enough, they're going to love you.
Right.
But, yeah, man, I'm heel through and through.
I always liked your work was much different than Adrian Adonis, but I always put you guys in the same paragraph when I talk about when it's time to get the heat. There was a visual change in your whole body language, everything you did. Anything from it wasn't backpedaling. It was straight up. You was a piece of shit, mean son of a bitch. And now it's time to really get dirty. And you was dirty to begin with.
Yeah.
Because you played a little bit of the cowardly stuff, but you played it on the on the up and up. And Adrian Adonis same way. All of a sudden when it comes time to get that heat, you got nasty. And you got to have that mean streak. In my opinion, to be a great heel, you need many things. But one thing you need to have, you got to be mean.
Yeah, you do. You just have to know when to smell, that blood in the water, and you got to go for it. And that's the thing is like.
And stay on it.
And stay on it.
And to the other end of that, the babyface has to have great fire to reflect that. You get a damn hot-ass heel and you get a limpy-ass babyface with no fire, nobody gives a rat's ass.
No, they don't. And, once again, I was so blessed to have Terry and Buddy and Jimmy Garvin in later years. I had a great time with Jimmy. But everybody knew their role, and we had 3 different roles. Mm-hmm. We had a shotgun effect. We weren't all the same.
Agreed.
And that was the thing.
Define those roles.
Well, I was the cocky pretty boy.
And the mouthpiece.
And the mouthpiece. Yes. Terry was the muscle. He was the badass.
The bully.
He was the bully, and Buddy was just that shithouse rat.
That everybody in the building could kick his ass.
Yeah.
That's what he was.
When he and David Manning did a hair match in Fort Worth on a Monday night, there was no Terry on the card. There was no Michael on the card. There was no Kerry on the card. They drew $40,000.
Yeah.
At that time, it was amazing. That said that guy could draw. And Ken Mantell, the booker at the time, he was really smart the way he would use us because, you'd have them spot shows around Dallas. Hell, I don't ever think people understood the magnitude of drawing on a Friday night in Dallas, Texas, because Friday night's football night.
Yeah.
And we drew a lot of money on Friday nights against, high school football. And then, you'd have those, you go to Garland, 30 miles away,
right.
Do $30,000.
Yeah.
Which, 6 guys on the card. But you could send a Freebird, a Von Erich here, a Freebird, a Von Erich there, or send a tag match here and Michael and Kerry there and just roll.
One of the guys that also came through the territory when I was a college student at North Texas State was Bruiser Brody.
Yeah.
Y'all obviously crossed paths with him many times.
Yeah.
Probably worked with him on occasion. Did you get along with him? What kind of guy was he?
I got along with Frank. We didn't match up well in the ring.
Right.
Like the first, you'd have to learn how to work with Frank because what Brody would do was like the first time I got in here, I cut him off for a second, started doing my strut. I got about 2 steps, and he was all over me, buddy.
Yeah.
And then he was like, get on me, get on me. And when I got on him, hell, I was blowing up because
right.
Boom, boom, he'd take all your stuff. But once you learn, now, of course, him and Gordy worked magnificently together.
Right.
He loved Terry. He's the one that babied Terry and got him over to Japan and got Terry rolling in Japan.
Really?
But, yeah. But I want to go back to something you asked me before. I forget to give somebody their props. How did I break in?
Yeah.
So I was going to the matches, and Johnny, Hollywood Tatum,
yeah,
his dad knew the police, so they would let us come in, and we could stand by the curtain and watch and get in for free. That was a big deal. So we, I won't name the wrestler, but he saw us, and I guess even my look then at 14 or 15, I looked like I might be able to score him some nature's medicine.
Right.
And one thing led to another. From there, I met Robert Gibson, who I know is Reuben Gibson from the Rock and Roll
right.
Express.
Great
so
time,
we started becoming buddies, and we would hang out at the pool hall. And one day, I'll never forget the day he said to me, he said, "Hey man, I got an opening on the TV rig crew. You want the spot?" I thought I died and went to heaven, and that's what I did. I started putting up the ring, and then from there, I started refereeing, and I went Bad Boy Jimmy Hines on a mat at the Myrtle Grove YMCA in Pensacola. Just taught me a few things, and everything I just kind of learned as I progressed. But that was my in, and once I got in, man, I just wasn't going to stop till I got to the top.
How long did you referee?
About a year or so.
Man, that's a hell of a background to have once you try to start getting into business and just being one of the boys.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're one of the boys, but my point is, man, being a referee is a work unto itself. I mean,
you need the referee.
Yeah.
He's part of it. You know what? A good referee, you don't notice he's there.
Right.
A bad referee, you notice right away.
Right. I'll tell you what, the couple times I've refereed matches, I love being a part of the show.
Yeah.
But being a referee is tough because it's all about the positioning, knowing the rules. I mean, hell, I've been wrestling for, I don't wrestle anymore, but, I wrestle for damn ever. I don't really know the rules until the referee enforces them. I think I do.
Right.
Until it comes, a 5 counter, just on some of the stuff. But did that help you any
No, not really, because I wasn't a good referee.
Yeah.
I wasn't that good. I wanted to be good, but I wasn't. I wanted to wrestle.
Best referee you ever saw?
Wow. One of them would be Ronnie West.
Yeah.
He was very animated. He wouldn't work for us in this day and time because he'd be too animated. Tommy Young wasn't bad.
I like Tommy Young.
Earl Hebner's a good referee.
Love Earl.
Earl's a good referee. Yeah. And it's a tough question. I know I'm going to forget somebody, but that's the top three that come to my mind right now. The couple we have right now, Mike Chioda's a good referee. Yeah. He's a real good referee.
I love our Chioda. I like what Timmy White before he rode off in the sunset.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of good guys.
They are. And they never get any taste of the glory, and they certainly help people get their taste of it. Yeah,
it's not an easy job to learn.
It's not.
You can watch it on TV, but once you all of a sudden, because, man, I'm speaking – as Stone Cold Steve Austin, the times I've had to referee, sometimes, it's like, okay, you're never going to see me sweat. But sometimes, really, I don't know where to shit or wind my watch out there. But you're never going to know that. And that's just the position of being a referee.
Yeah. You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
Steve Austin. Unleashed.
Talking to Michael PSAs. Yeah. Hey, so all the feuds that you guys been involved in, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears all over the territory. But during your heyday in the world class years, what was your week like? Because as down in Tennessee, USWA, Monday Memphis, Tuesday Louisville, Wednesday Evansville, Indiana, Thursday Spot Show, Fridays Dallas, Saturdays Memphis TV, Saturday nights Nashville Fairgrounds, Sunday might be a spot show. That's what we did every single week. Of course, WCW, we're not there yet, but in world class, what was your week?
Well,
because y'all was making good money and y'all was working all the time.
Yeah, we had a deal when we first came in there where we would not move into the place, and I learned that from Alpha and Sika, who, by the way, Alpha and Sika and Mike Boyette really, really, especially Alpha and Sika, helped my progression in this business, and I always give back to them.
Right.
But we had the deal where we would come in for 2 weeks at a time and then have a week off. And we do it to where, you'd only have all three Freebirds 1 week out of the month. And then you'd have Terry and Buddy 1 week. You'd have Michael and Buddy. And then, somebody would be off. Buddy had to work all the time.
Right.
He had 2-3 wives or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I got to be Ken Mantell's assistant booker. Vince put me on that. So I got to learn that end real quick. So my week would be Mondays, I'd be down at the Sportatorium working on stuff. Then we drive over to Fort Worth, and we do Monday night there and do that Saturday night show, which was on a big cable, too, at that time, Channel 11. Tuesdays was a spot show. Wednesdays was a spot show. Thursday, Friday was Dallas, and Saturday and Sundays. And then you would run San Antonio every couple of weeks. And, you'd go to Lubbock, every few weeks.
Good haul,
Yeah, Lubbock, good haul. We got introduced to Lubbock in a real funky way.
What happened?
Well, before we were against the Von Erichs, we were their buddies, which really helped that story. So we're out in Lubbock, and there's this place that the people know the Von Erichs, so they give you a good deal at the hotel. And this old lady and this guy that had one leg, and they kept wanting to take us to this strip joint. And this wasn't a gentleman's club.
Right.
This is outside of the city limits. And I didn't want to go. I didn't go to those places that time because I knew the way I looked, I was going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So we went to the gym, and then they pulled up at the place, and I said, well, I ain't going in. Well, David Von Erich and Terry grabbed me by feet and arm, pulled me out of the car, and they're dragging. I said, all right, I'll go in. So we go in there.
Straight up shoot. You're shooting, right?
I swear to God.
Okay.
So we go in there. So there's a Pac-Man machine. At the time, I like playing it, and I had my jeans tucked in, my cowboy boots,
of course,
my Jack Daniels shirt on with my vest, and I'm playing the Pac-Man game. All of a sudden, I feel upside my back. I thought, damn! I thought it was one of them, either David or Terry, and
someone ribbing you.
Yeah, that's a little stiff. I turned around. There's this drunk-ass bandito.
Oh,
okay,
super.
And so I'm looking at him. He goes, "What gang are you in?" Because I had the vest on. I said, I ain't in no gang, buddy. Well, about this time, Terry had seen it.
Oh, shit.
And here come Terry, and the guy was leaning over on his chair, and Terry come over, and he said, hey, big boy, this ain't got nothing to do with it. And he hauled off and slapped Terry. He slapped Terry? He slapped Terry. When he slapped Terry, he snatched that guy up out of his seat, took him down. The guy had a buddy, and it was like one of those dreams, man, bad dreams. I grabbed that guy, and I had him down, boom, and we had them both down. Now, I'm worried about knives coming.
Yeah.
Right? And I looked at Terry. I said, all right, let's let him up. We got him. Let's get out of here. As we're getting up, swear to God, the guy's going into his vest, right? You know he's going to get a gun. Run to the back door. It's locked. Finally, thank God, this guy had a peg leg. Finally, we get out. We run outside the strip joint. We run up to the road. The guy comes out. We're to the right. He looks to the left. He looks to the right, sees us, and he goes, boom, 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 and he unloads. Look at Terry. Terry's laughing. I said, what the hell are you laughing at? He said, because he missed. True story. But that was our week, and, really interesting weeks because we all had the same apartment for the first time ever, and that didn't turn out well. The first night we went in there, Terry kicked the front door off the hinges.
Why?
Just wanted to. Couldn't find the key. And we would always have, a half a gallon.
Boy, if I kicked every door off a hinge and I couldn't find a key too, there'd be a bunch of them.
Then he, we were drinking Jack, and back then I remember Hollywood came out for 1 week, and we sent him in the liquor store, and we said, okay, go get us a half gallon of Jack, and we need a mixer, so get us some Coke. And he said, okay, how much? I said, 16 ounce. For a half a gallon. And there was Coke left over, by the way. The kind you drink.
Yeah.
But anyway, we tore that apartment up, and what was funny was there was a guy upstairs that he kind of had some stuff we like to check out once in a while, and we would run the air conditioning all the time.
Jesus Christ.
And he would have fans on and stuff. It was so hot in Texas. And he came down and asked us about our electricity bill. And we showed him it was like $60. He goes, God dang. He said, mine's like $150. Come to find out, the maintenance guys there were rodeo guys that were friends of Terry's cousin. They had switched our wires with his wires. He's paying our electricity bill. But we had some unbelievable times. Unbelievable times.
Hey, I really enjoyed when y'all were coming through WCCW, and I would pay my money to go watch y'all work. I enjoyed you running Mid-South Power Pro, working for Bill Watts. Man, you was doing a lot of stuff with Jim Ross, and y'all were just like frickin' frack. I mean, just great chemistry together. Did y'all hit it off right off the bat? What was it? I mean, it was the television, the TV was, let me say this, it was just so fun to watch. Not funny because it was a bunch of hijinks. I mean, like, it was just so badass. It was a great show to watch.
Yeah. Well, that was when Mid-South went to UWF, I think.
Right.
And what a crew we had. I mean,
damn
you had
right.
DiBiase, Doc, Duggan. I mean, you had some hosses. And the thing with JR just kind of blossomed. At first, just like we all were back then in the business, well, JR, he's Bill's gopher,
Yeah.
And then you came to find out that, no, he's more than a gopher. He understands his business.
Yeah.
And then when you get to know him, he's a funny guy.
Oh, he's hilarious.
I mean, he's very self-deprecating and
sarcastic.
Yeah,
everything.
But so we started doing the thing, and it just clicked with the commentating, and he knew his role. He knew that he could only go so far because I was a top heel,
right?
And that's important,
right.
Know your role,
right?
But that's where that came from.
How did the consistency come about? Because you were Michael P.S.
Right, Purely Sexy,
right?
And DiBiase came up with it one night, just a different version of.
Yeah, crowd bought into it, hook, line, and sinker.
Well, yeah, because I sold it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
if I act like it didn't bother me, it wouldn't have gone nowhere.
But that damn look you had on your face was priceless. Of course, the back and forth with the hair. Yeah, you milked it to the nth degree. It was great television, great action. And DiBiase was on fire. I mean, like you said, it was a great crew of guys.
It was a good crew of guys, and we were having a good time. That was another case in which, I was in Georgia Championship Wrestling when Barnett had it, and we first went out to Michigan and Ohio, and we're just doing unbelievable business because it had laid dormant. Nobody was running it. And we all wanted Barnett to go nationwide.
Right.
And he wouldn't because they were my friends. It was that unwritten rule. When we went to World Class, there it was again, because Fritz had that unbelievable 6-camera TV. It was revolutionary, and you mic'd the ring, and you could feel the hits. And then Fritz had friends, and he wouldn't go. And then Watts was going to go. But by the time Bill made the attempt, I don't think he quite realized what the investment would be.
Right.
And he got a little scared, and that's his right. You know, he wants to keep his money, and, you know, he sold it out to Crockett. But it was like I kept missing that boat, you know. And parts of that's my fault because we came to WWF, and that didn't last long at all.
Right.
That was didn't work.
But then going back to the Mid-South, you were there right in the middle of Missy Hyatt versus Dark Journey, right?
Oh, yeah.
Man, that was a hot-ass angle.
It was.
And that was two chicks out there, two ladies, I want to use the right term. But, man, it wasn't a wrestling match.
No.
This was a cat fight. I mean,
something you see in a bar.
Yeah, and
clothes ripping.
It was riveting.
Yeah,
and they were. I mean, it's almost like a shoot.
Yeah,
and of course the loaded Gucci bag, and I mean, god dang, Jim would embellish that thing. I mean, it's like the loaded Gucci bag. I mean, forget about it. It was a hot angle for you guys sitting back, and that money was a money drawn angle.
It was a money drawing angle, and see, that was the thing that will always work is packaging. You know, you can't. Not everybody's going to be down with the top act.
Right.
But there might be something underneath that appeals to them more.
Right.
And, you know, that's something I learned from Watts, and I learned a lot from Bill Watts. I learned how to get fined up the yin-yang, but that's okay. You know, it is what it is. But I learned the business, and he would always package that thing. You know, back then the Fantastics were there. They weren't the top team. You know, but they were a good addition to great action.
Yes.
And a good addition to the card. You know, you had Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert there.
Yeah.
I mean, it just one-man gang. What a great big guy he was.
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever got to work with him.
Never got to work with him, but I enjoyed watching him.
He was good. He was good. So, you know, we had all those components, and we brought more people over from World Class because that was starting to go down.
Right.
The Link came over there, Dewey.
How was Link as a person? Because I loved watching him. You know, he had the mystique.
Yeah.
He was a missing link. Always jacked up. Always in good shape.
He, you know, I had learned from Buddy that as Dewey Robertson, he was a good mechanic.
Right.
There's that word.
Right.
But he wasn't a top guy. And when he went to that gimmick, it all changed for him.
Right.
And I would say that the person in the gimmick became one.
Right.
And Dewey was a little out there, you know. I know in his later years he got straightened up and was a lot more sane, but I enjoyed him.
But what you're saying goes back to what we were talking about a while ago. Maybe you were not the most athletic cat in the world, but you drew money. Going back to the Link, Dewey Robinson, mechanic in the ring, when he comes up with the missing link, drawing money, and he's coming out to this bang your head, and he's got his face painted, and there's something cool to it. It's larger than life. It was cool. It looked good. The music was good, and all of a sudden, you know, everybody's selling the headbutt, and it was over.
And Kamala is another one you have to talk about.
I love the Jerry Lawler was on the show, and he's talking about it, you know, how he had the idea for Kamala. And then the one time, you know, I think Kamala thought that he was drawing a banana on his belly. It was a moon. It was great.
I'll tell you a story about Kamala. He started with us in that Mississippi opposition territory. And they brought him in as a boxer, Sugar Bear Harris. And Percy was managing him at the time. And so we had a battle royal, and he won. And they came around to get the payoffs. And it was the minimum. You got $40. And he had this look on his face and he asked the promoter, he said, but I won the battle royal. He said it was a $2,000 purse. And they go, yeah, but that's not what you're going to get. And he goes, but I went and bought tires. He's a great guy, man. But I remember we teamed up with him one time. We had so much fun because when we went to tag him in, he didn't understand, and he'd turn on you. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you talk about somebody who knew their gimmick.
Yeah.
That guy knew his gimmick.
Yeah, man, he sat there and pat his belly. I mean, and it was believable. I bought into it, hook, line, and sinker, man. I love Kamala. I mean, but I feared him. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So going over, then NWA would have been after Mid-South, right?
Yeah. It was a Georgia Championship Wrestling, transitioning to WCW. And
not NWA, WCW.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's when, you know, the corporate suits at TBS started getting involved.
Okay, so then how was all of a sudden you go from down in Florida, then World Class, and then some Bill Watts action, and then you go to Georgia Championship Wrestling, and then to WCW, and that was Crockett or Ted Turner?
It was both at the time.
Okay.
And it eventually.
But what was different about the action or the in-ring product versus what Bill Watts was doing? Or even in Dallas?
Well, Dallas was a band of misfits that hung together because we weren't supposed to be able to draw money. We weren't in that echelon, that political group, that thought that they were better. And so we all kind of, and Brody would lead that charge with us, when you got back into the Crockett's and the hierarchy of the NWA, you could see that there was a ceiling. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It was a low ceiling for old Studded Steve.
And, they weren't as open to the rebellious lifestyles and attitudes, even though some of them had their own lifestyles, but they was permissible because they were in that political group. In between there, too, we went to South Florida for a little bit and went to AWA in the last days there.
How did you find AWA? Because I was about to ask you, had you ever been there? Because I didn't remember you seeing a television program with you over there. It was a little, I don't want to say the work was different. Maybe it was what was different about the AWA? Because it felt different.
Well, it was an older version of, it wasn't contemporary to me, and they had their own guys that they used for years and years. They really their peak time was fall and really winter. Summer they were kind of off, and these guys would just come in, do their stuff, and they would draw really good money. Yeah. But they weren't transitioning because the smaller wrestler and the bigger action and quicker, faster action, which is what was working. First time we worked for them, we went up, and we were not happy with the payoff, so we decided that we weren't going to go there. Then after the Florida thing, they called us back, and we went up there, with the aspirations to work against the Road Warriors.
Yes.
And when I first mentioned that to Vern, he was like, "You're Road Warriors, you're both heels." I said, "Who's a heel?" I said, "Do you not watch when they come out? They're no heels."
Yeah.
The crowd goes nuts. And it wasn't until we finally gave her notice, was going back to Texas, that they finally booked us against the Warriors, and we sold out everywhere. And Vern tried to get us not to go. And we sold out in Denver, and he had a meeting with us up in his suite. And he said, "Well, listen, I heard you guys are going to give your notice." He said, "You can't do that. We're doing too much business." And Gordy said, "Vern, we done gave our notice. We done cut promos. We're going." And he goes, "I'm going to tell you something, big boy. You're not going nowhere." And Terry was like, "Oh, yes, we are. Yes, we are." Hold on just a second. Let me take this. So, we did end up leaving. But, I mean, Vern, bless his heart, he didn't understand that he was the only store in town that had a lot to. I mean, don't get me wrong. They had some great matches. I mean, when you talk about Bobby Heenan and Nick Bockwinkel, what a pairing that was. And, the Blackjacks and all the people that went in and out of there. But as Vince started bringing the entertainment to the sport, and that's what was grabbing people, Vern didn't get that, and we could see the writing on the wall, and everybody started bailing, going back to Crockett and so forth. So,
Hey, so how was working with the Road Warriors?
We got along real well with Mike and Joe's, especially Mike, Hawk, we got along really well with him.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to, you had to have a certain toughness to go in there with them and understand what they did and what worked.
Right.
And that you weren't going to set no heat like you did on Tommy Rich.
Right.
It would just, they weren't going to stay down that long, but it didn't matter.
Right.
You see, and that's the thing where you have to adapt. But, we enjoyed working with them. We drew a lot of money. That's all I care about is drawing money. Still today, that's all I care about is drawing money.
So then there you are, AWA. You returned to WCW?
Out of AWA.
You put your notice in, but you saw the writing on the wall.
Yeah, we went back to World Class.
Okay, back to World Class. But you saw the writing was on the wall at WWF.
AWA.
AWA, no. But you were in AWA, you put your notice in, but you saw what Vince was doing over there from an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah, I saw the writing on the wall for AWA.
So, with that being said, what are you talking about? And what direction were they going that no one else was?
I didn't pay a lot of attention to WWF because some of it was not what I grew up with. It was a little bit too character-driven, if you will. But it was working.
And it's funny, you say too character-driven, and now we go back to saying it's the character that's drawing the money.
Well, but see, to me, a character was, the bar guy, the real life guy.
Well, right.
And Vince had all kind of characters.
Bigger than, I get you.
That would hit kids and all this stuff. I didn't see that back then.
Right, as a hardcore guy. And me, during that period when I was in WCW and WWF was the opposition, I thought we were more seriously geared to being wrestling.
Right.
That's what was driving me at that time.
And that's the way you were broke in.
Yes.
See, people don't realize the mindset that you have in the way that you were broke in
the trenches,
and what it took to break in. Now kids can go anywhere, pay a certain amount of money, and get trained supposedly, and then they think they're in the wrestling business or sports entertainment. That wasn't it. It took everything you had to be allowed to come into this business,
right,
and then earn your way into this business, and then maybe you could climb the ladder,
right.
So, a lot of different changes that have happened over the course of time. But, as you said, look at the business now.
It's changed. I remember one time I was down in USWA. Dutch Mantel just changed my name to Stunning Steve Austin. And I noticed that everybody was going to the ring with music. Well, I was a new guy. Of course, I didn't show up with the cassette. I just come from, 2 months of work in Dallas. Just quit my job on a freight dock, loading and unloading trucks, driving that forklift. And I roll in. Do a couple of push-ups, look pretty good, got long blonde hair, good-looking kid, baby face, wasn't worth a damn, greener than grass, and I need some music. So finally, I got my recorder out and recorded Unchained by Van Halen on a cassette, and I can't remember the guy that used to run the music there at Memphis, and one night, it was on a Monday, I said, hey, man, before I go out to the ring, would you mind playing this music? He looked at me like I was the biggest piece of shit he'd ever seen in his life. He goes, what are you talking about? He goes, there have been guys working here a couple of years don't come out with music. What makes you special? I said, well, very respectfully, I just said, hey, man, I just know some of the guys are using music. If you don't mind, play this for me. Sure enough, he played my music, and I had some music going out there with Van Halen. I thought I was cool, because the entrance was at least something.
Yeah.
But y'all were one of the first people to use music, correct?
Yes.
Because now who else makes this claim as well about having ring music but y'all were
Gorgeous George did it first,
right?
But and then that went away, and then people would sometimes use it periodically. Lawler would sometimes for special shows, special entrants. Nobody used it as a nightly thing till we did, and I don't care what anybody says. Gotcha. That's bullshit.
Okay.
So
that's the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now it was Jerry Jarrett was the one that first allowed us to try this, and I'll never forget in Memphis. I had the record, and now he says, okay, we'll have the custodian, he'll play your record. And up comes this older man, probably about 60, 70 years old, and I'm asking him to put it on this last groove, because Freebird was the last song on the album.
Right.
And I know he's going to screw this up, and then we're going to come out to Give Me 3 Steps or something like that.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, man, he hit it right on there. We came out, and they had the spotlights twirling and the house lights down, and boy, you knew right away. Home run.
Yeah.
And what really got me is when we left there, because that didn't work out long.
Why?
Well, ironically enough, we were against Lawler and Dundee. And when we made our entrance, Jerry was in the ring with his arms folded, and his body language said to me at the time, this is a threat. And he turned heel on Dundee the next TV. So that was kind of the end of that. But it was a blessing in disguise because we went to work for Watts. What pissed me off to no end was when we got there, Watts said, you guys got music, right? Yeah. Well, where's your album? I said, it's right here. And we were at TV. I said, well, why? And he goes, because I'm going to go make a card of it. I'm going to play it when you come out on TV. God, I was mad at myself. I never thought of that. I thought of everything. I never thought about putting it on TV, which was the whole icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But I didn't think of it, and Watts did. And, then next thing you know, Junkyard Dog turns heel. He's coming out to Bad Leroy Brown.
Right.
And then it was a race.
Right.
It was a race to get to Georgia Championship Wrestling and be the first one to play music on TV. And that's why we left in our heyday at that first run with Bill Watts. Because Ole Anderson came to one of the big shows, and he wanted us to come, and we said we'd come, and that's when we started making all those outfits and hitting TBS with that. And as they say, rest is history.
Man, here's an interesting thing, because, when I broke in, there was a couple of territories still left. And all of a sudden, you guys are giving Vern Gagne your notice. You're giving Bill Watts your notice. I mean, you guys are leaving on a whim. I mean, that takes guts.
Yeah.
It also takes confidence, and it's a risk.
Yeah, it is. But, I was taught from FNCCA, when you get hot, that's when you go. because you always have a place to come back to.
Right.
And what was cool then is you didn't have so many national TVs where you had a good angle, you'd take that thing right over to somewhere else and run some form or fashion of it, and it would work, whether it was the same people or not. You know, the elements are still there as long as, you know, we were there. But, God, dog, just talk about all that stuff brings back great memories.
But how refreshing was that just to be able to just, hey, man, pick up and, man, leave the Carolinas to go to, you know, to Tulsa, Oklahoma area, then Dallas area, Minnesota area.
Well, it was cool in the fact that, you know, the kids can't do it now.
Right.
Because they ain't got nowhere to go.
No.
So, you know, but back then, people had to treat you different. Well, here's what we were thinking. Well, we thought about that. We don't like that.
Right.
How about we do this? And, you know, people would work with you a little bit better. I remember when I was finishing up in Mid-South and going to Georgia, we had the situation where Terry and Buddy got tired of doing the promos, and we would have to do them in Jackson after Baton Rouge. And we were living in Jackson, Mississippi. So Terry and Buddy would go home to Jackson, and I'd go with them, and then I'd fly across from Jackson to Shreveport and then drive back to do the Jackson show that night. Well, Grizzly Smith would be in charge of taking me, making sure I made it.
Right.
And then that last week, when we're doing all our loser leave towns, I'm in the back of his car having a hell of a time, and there's nothing he could do about it but just sit there and grin and bear it as I pop my beer and stuff and get to the town.
Hey, man, how many days of the month or the year were you guys working? I mean, because, man, we hit a good stretch when I first came into World Championship Wrestling. And, we were probably working 25 days out of the month, and that's as hot and heavy as I got. But from the way you were talking, y'all had to been on the road. I mean, it's damn near 24/7.
Yeah, I think one time Buddy counted, I think one time we went like 66, 69 days in a row. And that included double shots.
Yeah, and if you wasn't doing that, you might only have one or two down days or even one down day, but then it's right back into another 20 or 30 stretch.
Well, you know, the thing is, you ask for time off, man. You take some time off, you might lose your spot.
Yeah. You ain't making no money. You ain't getting no retainer.
No.
Yeah.
Ain't no royalties.
Nothing.
So you got to make that hay while the sun shines.
Some of your favorite feuds. I know Von X. Man, dude, when was the time when y'all turned heel on them, what was it, Bam Bam pulled his boot off and hit, was it Kevin upside the head with that damn boot? It was in the Sportorium, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the key factor was when Kerry took
the cage with Flair.
Yeah, Kerry took on Flair.
Yeah.
And they had a shoot vote for the referee, and they voted me in.
Yes.
And then we decided to make sure nobody got to the door, Terry would be the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And then during the course of this, me and Flair are getting in arguments.
Yes.
And I nail Flair, and I tell Kerry to top him, throw him on top.
And he wouldn't.
He won't take the win.
Yeah.
So then I get mad. It's really coolly designed because then I get mad and says, screw it. And Terry sees that, says, come on. He opens the door. Leave, Michael. So Terry turns his back. When I go to leave, Kerry's behind me. Flair knees Kerry, which knocks me through the gate. When Terry turns around and sees me on the floor, he sees Kerry going like this. He assumes Kerry did it, slams the door, and that was it.
Hit Kerry in the head, color everywhere. What, did Flair pin him, or was it a figure four?
No, he should have.
Yeah.
They did a false finish on that, and then Kerry eventually couldn't continue.
Right.
But boy, that was hot.
Yeah. So what was the occasion then? What was it, a couple of weeks later? But it was something y'all in there opened up a can on them and Bam Bam pull off that. Or was it Kevin wearing a boot?
No, it was us.
It was y'all's boot, but he ended up getting a hold of it in the melee.
Yeah. And that's where your first, we call them bad street fights.
Yeah.
But that's where your first hardcore matches were coming from.
Right.
Not the first ever.
Right.
But, the first prominently on television.
Yeah. God dang, you just said it. Bad Street matches. Let's talk about Bad Street, Atlanta, GA. Baddest Street in the whole USA. That's one of my favorite songs of all time. How'd you write that damn thing? And that had a good groove to it.
Well, I wrote it with a guy named Jimmy Papa, but I'd always wanted to do my own song. Jimmy Hart had got me thinking that when I was in Memphis. And at this time, everybody was starting to use music. And remember, we would all use music and not have to pay on it. Well, the music industry started getting smart to that, and I figured I really do need to get us a theme song. I stole a line from Bad Bad Leroy Brown. He did a promo one time, and this is usually how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And he said, I live on Bad Street. He said, he said, I live on Bad Street. And he said, the further you went down the block, the better it got. Mm-hmm. And we lived in the last house on the right. I thought that said everything, man. It's okay, because I'm imagining how bad could this street be? And they live in the last house. So if you make it down there, you pretty bad son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So anyway, then I just took those lyrics and wrote a song around them. You know, and I'm proud of those lyrics. But you know, it was just the mindset. I built the lyrics around the Freebirds and what we did and how we looked at life.
So you mentioned the back surgery, and that was the end of your career.
Yeah.
How did the back injury happen?
Working with Johnny B. Bad. No. From those bad bumps that I would take, I was working in Sharpsville, Georgia. And I was working with Johnny that night. And I just took a hip toss. And when I got out of the ring that night, I felt a different pain, a sharp shooting pain. And it ended up just getting worse. And it just, ended up that I was shattering my discs. And then the sciatic nerve, the fragmented discs were on it. And I finally, because back then you didn't go check nothing out. You just knew sooner or later it was going to go away to some, level. And when they took me to the doctor, they went, holy Jesus, And then they said, why don't you try some rehab? And I tried that. And then I tried epidurals. And then one day when the Super Bowl, I think it was in '94, was in Atlanta, we'd been out going to Super Bowl parties, and I came home. And later that morning, I got up to put a videotape in, to watch. And boom, I couldn't get up off the floor. I mean, for like a couple hours, everybody else was asleep, and I wasn't going to say nothing. I finally dragged myself up on the couch, and I finally got somebody up, and I said, I got to go to the doctor. And that's it, man. And they cut me.
So what did it end up being?
I don't remember what they call it, a disectomy or something like that.
A discectomy?
Yeah. And they fused, my back together. I mean, I walked the next day. And, I tried real hard to get back into it. But, once the Freebirds kind of went their different ways and stuff, my love for the business was still there. I knew eventually if I was to last in this thing that I love, that I was going to have to migrate to where I have gone.
Right.
To be behind the scenes.
That's funny because as we were talking earlier, and we had alluded to this when you were Doc Hendricks, and you weren't ready to be Doc Hendricks.
Right.
And to what I always say a lot of times when people say, once you go back and do certain things with WWE, man, the ring is your proving ground. You can talk all the trash that you want, and in the vein of selling tickets, or to convey your thoughts in a promo, or to get your character across, or to do whatever it is to do business. But when you do not have the squared circle, that's where everything starts and stops. Mm-hmm. A promo's great, but you got to be able to back up all that shit in that ring.
Yep.
And sometimes when I would come back and I just come, make a promo or clack some beers together, the fans loved it. But inside, I was like, it was like when that monkey, you turn the key in his back and he claps the cymbals together,
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that proven ground, anymore.
And
that's what you hang your head on.
satisfying.
No, it wasn't satisfying.
It wasn't satisfying. And, that was it. That was hard for me for a long time. But, then I watched, I listened, I learned, and I realized that I still had so much more to give. And then I finally learned to start living, somewhat vicariously through others. Started with the Hardys, but then helping other people with their matches and my knowledge. And, the whole time I'm learning, too, because if you ever think you know it all, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to know it all because something's going to change.
Did you ever get a chance to work with Eddie Graham down in Florida?
I worked for him.
Okay, so what'd you learn from that guy? I always heard he's like the greatest finish guy in the history of the business. And we know Pat Patterson is stellar at finishes as well.
Well, Pat I learned so much from.
Right.
I hooked up to Pat once I became an agent and just learned. I just milked everything that he could give me.
And
and I still do. Unfortunately, when I went down there and got the book from Eddie, and it was between me and Wahoo, and Bill Watts put a good word in for me. He said, this young kid's got some ideas, yada, yada. Eddie was at a time in his life where he just had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to sit under his learning tree that much at all. And matter of fact, why I was down there is when Eddie left us.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I didn't get that Eddie Graham knowledge that so many have, like Dusty and Gerald Briscoe But I talk to them about it all the time. I could sit and listen to Dusty and Jerry tell me stories about Eddie Graham forever.
Right.
And his knowledge. And what the great ones have, it's a feel. And it's a control. To learn how to control that audience. Because they want to be entertained. And they want to be controlled.
Right.
So many kids today, and God bless them, they are the athletes that, I could have never been. And they can do things that are amazing, but all they hear is noise.
Right.
They don't hear the crowd.
Right.
They, standing them up and sitting them back down, there's never a better feeling than that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think sometimes when I look back at some of the places where I was, sometimes you tend to overthink things out there, and you don't have to. I remember for a good many years, I would never smile in the ring because I was too business orientated. I mean, it was so serious. I'm such a bad guy that I can't, I was having fun, but it wasn't like I was having fun. Then finally I started, picking things up and, from 101 to 201 to 301, like, hey, man, the more fun I'm out of here having, the better I am and the better the people are responding. So it's not as, I think the story in the ring, on one hand, it's very, very simple, but it's also very, very complicated. But I'm outworking myself. You can overthink it.
You can.
You can overthink it.
And you do. And the problem, too, is that, I noticed a lot of times that as much fun as we had, that I probably could have had a lot more fun had I not been so into me or us
right.
and the business and drawing and all that. And because, unfortunately, before you know it, the ride's over.
Yeah.
The ride's over, and, you're not steering anymore.
Yeah. Sucks when you got to steer with your hand. I'd rather drive and ride shotgun any day of the week.
I heard that.
Before we ride off into the sunset, favorite match that you ever had?
Wow. You know what? I'd have to say, and it's on YouTube, there's a Bad Street match from Fort Worth that was really just balls to the wall, and Killer Khan ended up coming out and screwing Kerry. That was one of my favorites. I had, believe it or not, one of my favorite single matches was with Lex Luger for the U.S. title.
Really?
Where I got what I consider a really, really good match out of Lex. That was one of my favorite matches. Most of them with the Von Erichs and the Road Warriors I enjoyed. I enjoyed my run with Ric Flair. I learned a lot. I learned how to do a backslide. First time he goes for the hip toss backslide, brother. What? I don't do a backslide. Boom! I nailed him. But I enjoyed working with Rick because that taught me something, and it was good for me personally because we drew some money.
Yeah.
And
what did Rick teach you?
To listen.
Right.
Because once again, I kind of thought I knew it all.
Right. And
I learned I didn't know that much at all. Especially about single competition.
Right.
Tag team, I knew that formula.
Man, how come ain't no more tag teams like back in the day?
Well, because they don't come into it with the same mantra, the same direction as you have to be a unit. That's the one thing, like, I'm so proud of the Shield, is that when they came up here, one of the first things I told them, I said, guys, everywhere you go, you're together. You go to the gym together. You go stay at the same hotel. You ride together. You talk about your matches. A lot of the kids, for a long time, they was like the sheepdog and Wile E. Coyote. They clock in at 9 and they clock out at 5.
Yeah.
You can't do that and be on top and draw money in this business. It's got to be a lifestyle, not a job. And as far as tag teams, I will say the Wyatts and the Shield are so refreshing because you can tell by their work they love the business.
Yeah.
They do entertaining things through the course of the match. They know when to stop it, when to bring it up. And I'm hoping, through NXT, I think we are really starting to teach the kids. I don't know if I want to say the right way, but a better way, and to be willing to make mistakes. That's the thing. For a while, I think we dictated everything to everybody, and you can't learn like that. I used to love it when I see Brian Gewirtz bring you a promo. I go, watch this, it won't take long. I don't need no sheet of paper.
But you can't program everything, and sometimes you can have a house rocking, and all of a sudden the bottom falls out, and you don't know why. And you get in the car, and you start discussing it, and then you get back on track, and then 4 days off. 4 days later, the bottom doesn't drop off. Maybe you lost them in the heat or something. But it's always each thing is something different.
Yeah, you try to refine the situation.
Yeah.
And that's what the great ones do. They always try to find how to make it better. How could I do this better? And, the other side of that coin is back then, Vince was getting a lot of talent that was experienced. They had worked angles. They had been on television. Yeah. They had lived life.
A lot of guys had 10 years under their belt before they came to the big show.
Yeah, and they were men that had lived life and been in bars and had their, ain't nothing better for you than get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
That'll really wake you up. And, a lot of the kids that came up didn't have that tangible in them, and you couldn't let them go, because if you let them go out and try it on their own, they would fail miserably. And yourself from having the weight of the world on your shoulders, being the top guy, that you're controlling the show, you're feeding people.
Right.
I don't think a lot of people understand that anymore, the pressure of feeding people.
Right.
When you're on top, that's your responsibility.
Hey, man, if you hadn't gotten to the business of pro wrestling, we'll call it sports entertainment since we're sitting here talking at WrestleMania 30. If you hadn't gotten to this business, what would you have been doing?
I don't know. I believe that this is the way my life, played out, that God meant me to do exactly what I'm doing. I don't know. I guess I would have been with a band somewhere, bouncing. Something.
Yeah.
I'd have been in entertainment for sure.
Right. All right, I've been talking to Michael P.S. Hayes. You can call him Doc Hendricks, but one of my favorites of all time. I appreciate you coming to the show. I know you got a busy weekend ahead of you, and I appreciate you giving me 60 minutes of your time.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It was a blast.
Thank you for joining us for another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show. Please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends. For more Steve Austin Show, go to PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Dive into true crime on Pluto TV. Unravel the mysteries with Forensic Files and 48 Hours. Investigate crimes with Dateline 24/7 and Unsolved Mysteries. With thousands of free crime movies and TV shows, Pluto TV is the true home of crime. Download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming true crime on live channels and on demand. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.
What's up, guys? I'm Brendan Schaub. If you love everything mixed martial arts, I'm talking UFC breakdowns, UFC picks, one championship picks, Bellator, PFL, you name it, your boy breaks it all down. Tune into The Schaub Show, available every Monday wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Schaub Show. Enjoy.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy, Big Brother Jake, a.k.a. Jake Warner. My government name. Check it out. I host a show called the Big Brother Jake Podcast. And I've taken my talents to the biggest and baddest platform on the planet. That's right, baby. PodcastOne. My show is unique as I talk about everything. Life, sports, entertainment, being a single dad juggling several jobs. I'm a hot mess, but it's damn entertaining. Subscribe and review now on Apple Podcasts and listen on PodcastOne or wherever you get your podcasts.